Brad Marchand is at it again. I'm sure you're aware of this, but he cannot wait to get into town. He circles this on his calendar like normal people would a vacation. You're going to Disney, I got to circle that, I can't wait. You're going to Vegas, circle that, can't wait. For Brad, it's when do I come to Toronto so I can absolutely troll everyone in attendance, and he did that today. Why don't we play a couple of these clips? And I want to get your response first because I have a bit of a different view on this than I think maybe other people do.
Okay.
Let's begin with what he had to say about what could have happened if he actually got to free agency on July 1st.
Was there ever any interest from the Leafs last summer when you were a free agent to bring you on board to help their team out?
Yeah. Toronto was it was between Florida and Toronto of where I was going to go. Ultimately, if I never thought that it was going to be possible to re-sign in Florida, I really didn't.
All right, so he never actually got to free agency, Strud, but it turns out it was between two teams, and of course the other one was the Maple Leafs, which again is his favorite place, and he loves coming up here, and he loves chatting with the media, and he loves just being a good guy. Brad, what do you make of that revelation from Brad Marchand?
I mean, he's just messing with them. He's just messing with you. Like, I don't think he ever had any intention of leaving Florida. Why would you, right? He's been in Boston for a long time, goes down there. He wins the championship. He sees what it's like to live there. The team is still good and will be good for, I think, a little bit longer. To go back to Toronto would have been a good challenge for him, but I just think he's just trolling everyone. He's messing with everybody, all the Leafs fans. And we almost had him. No,
exactly.
You didn't, and what has he got? 21 goals or 22 goals?
He's playing great. That's the thing.
Really well,
he's
man.
Playing like he played
really
himself onto the Olympic team, right? Where at the Four Nations, he was one of the original 6 picks, and I'm not sure he would have been at the Four Nations if it weren't for that. He had a really injury-riddled season last year. He struggled. The Bruins were a disaster. And once he got traded, he got healthy, he got down to Florida. He's completely revitalized his career. Not that it fell off a cliff, but there was a dip early last season, and the way he played in the playoffs in particular was I get why Bennett won the Conn Smythe, and he had bigger goals and bigger moments, and he played higher up the lineup. They beat the Leafs because of that third line. That's why it wasn't Sam Bennett. Now, Bennett knocked out Stolarz, and maybe that factored into some of the issues for the Leafs, possibly. Most notably Game 3, when they're up 2-0 and 3-1 in that game. If Stolarz is in, maybe they win that Game 3-2. Maybe it doesn't go to overtime, but who scored the OT winner in Game 3? Brad Marchand. Marchand did it. That third line and the way he played against the Leafs in the playoffs, he was phenomenal. He was incredible, and he obviously continued it throughout the rest of the Stanley Cup run. But he's earned his way back on to the Olympics and possibly playing a prominent role, which means the contract, which is still a ludicrous deal that he got, 6 years at big money, that is not going to age well. It's just not going to. At some point, the wheels are going to fall off for this guy. But they don't have to worry about it right now, and they're lucky they kept him with Barkov out, Kachuk out, all these injuries. If it weren't for him, they wouldn't be in the position they're currently in. But I think what he somewhat admitted, and I do think this is actually trolling, and this is a really good job, because the importance of trolling is you got to sell it like there's the potential for legitimacy. Right? Like the best trolls, and this is why he's so great, he will say things where you think to yourself, I think he might be serious, right? It's like the Costanza line. Yeah. It's not a lie if you truly believe it. It's not a troll job if they know you're trolling. So this one actually opens up the door to the ability for Leaf fans to say, maybe he's right. Maybe he was actually going to come here. In reality, who knows what the Leafs were going to offer? Who knows what he was really thinking, where he wanted to go? Guy's lived in the States forever. He's got a wife, kids, all that. They're going to move to Toronto. I don't know. But ultimately, I think what may have come out of this, Strud, too, and we've known collusion has been around forever. We've known tampering's been around forever. He knew the Leafs were going to offer him something. It was well reported. The Leafs obviously would have loved to have had him. But there's a chance he used the Leafs to make sure he got the deal in Florida. There's a chance that he knew the Leafs were going to put $30 million total on the table, which is, by all accounts, what he was looking for, And Florida said, we can't have this guy leave town. We can't have this guy leave and stay in the division. So he may have played poker using the Leafs to make sure he got what he wanted in Florida, which, again, adds insult to injury. Because now the Leafs are involved in the negotiation without anything to show for it. And they got to keep playing against this guy, against their arch nemesis, who's already won a cup there. They've won 2 cups. They've been to 3 straight cup finals. And they're not off to a great start this year, and they're still ahead of the Leafs. So it just continues to pile on when it comes to Brad and the Panthers and Leaf fans.
Well, it sure does. And I think that, the Toronto area or city has been used before in other sports, right? Is it Soto and Ohtani have also, I think, used that market as kind of like to keep driving it up to give him another opportunity. But with Marchand, your point is well made. That third line last year for Florida was really a second line, right? But they were put as a third line. They were so good, so efficient. So, I mean, it would have been great to have him if you're a Leafs fan. And, that his contract will be similar to what happens with Tanev's contract. Like, it's not going to go well towards the end. But you're like, we need this guy now. We're going to keep him. We're going to figure this out. And then down the road, we'll figure out the mess and what happens. Maybe it's an LTIR situation or he.
And it may not just be him, right?
Issues.
Like Bennett might have issues by the end of his deal.
100%.
Ekblad could have issues by the end of his deal.
100%.
A lot of these guys.
Well, you abuse your body. Think about how much hockey, let's just use Ekblad and Bennett, or Barkov or any of these guys. The last 3 years, how much hockey they've played for their team, and then now we're bringing in the extras, with the Olympic team. Although no Barkov, no Bennett this year, but it does add up, and there's a price to pay for that at some point in your career.
Absolutely, and every year there's more of a toll. Every injury is just more and more difficult to get back from. So I think the Marchand comment on the free agency and the Leaf one, that's world class. Like that to me is just a brilliant line by him. I love it. He saved that material. He could have dropped it the first time he was in town. He chose not to. He went a different direction. He talked about how great the Leafs are and how they're not out of it and all that kind of stuff. Here's where I think he's getting sloppy. All right, let's play the next clip where he brings Mitch Marner into the fold. Here's what he had to say about Marner and his exit from Toronto.
I was serious about what I said with where they're at. As a group, the way that they're competing now, they compete the right way, which is what they kind of had to get over that hurdle. It's unfortunate the fans ran Marner out of town. That kind of, that's a huge impact for their group. He's a point-of-game player. Like that hurts.
Okay. Now we're getting sloppy here. Now, like I said, Costanza, it's not a lie if you truly believe it. It's not a troll job if we know you're trolling. Like, that's such a gratuitous, over-the-top comment where I think Leaf fans are like, all right, good one, good shot. Yes, the fans ran Mitch out of town. It wasn't his play. It wasn't his decision. It wasn't the contractual scenario. It wasn't all the losing. And Marchand talks about how they compete the right way, Struddy. It wasn't evident in Game 7. Wasn't evident in Game 5. Like that Game 7 performance the Leafs put on, you saw it. I was in the building. It was one of the most inept performances I've ever seen in my life from any team in any situation. It was not competing the right way. But this is where Brad, I think his skis are just a little bit too far over the cliff, pushing Marner, running Marner out of town. And I think fans now are going to say, wait a minute, because what the history in Toronto is, the fans have always hated the media because there's a certain portion of the fan base that believes it's the media's fault for everything, right? Media is the reason the Leafs haven't won a cup in 60 years. Not the players, not the organization, not ownership, not management, not poor drafting, asset management, not cap manipulation, not COVID, not anything. Not the opponents being good. It's the media. Media is too tough. Media is running everyone out. I think what's interesting here is he didn't say the media ran Marner out of town. The fans ran Marner out of town. And I think that's where Leaf fans are going to say, wait a minute, I actually like this guy, Brad Marchand, who shouldn't be a guy that anyone likes in town because he has destroyed them for 15 years. He has owned them in every capacity for 15 years. I think that's where the buck's going to stop. Leaf fans are going to hear that and say, wait a minute, he's pulling our chain here. He actually is trolling, which is exactly what he's doing.
Well, I think the other part of it to me is that it's very condescending. He's like the big brother. Hey, they finally learned how to compete. Like, they finally got it. Like, if I was on the Leafs team, I'd be so pissed off. Like, I don't want to hear from you if we're competing hard enough or not. Like as you just mentioned, he's had, quite a bit of success against the Maple Leaf organization. And if I'm a player on that team, I'd be so pissed off getting on that lineup tonight. I'd be looking for him at every turn. Now he wants that, and that's what he's looking for. And I get that, but doesn't mean you can't give him what he wants, right? Just go after him, because it's so condescending. Like, we're over here trying, we're doing the right thing. You haven't been doing the right thing. So that's a shot at the core that's been there. That's right at Matthews. That is right at Nylander. That is right at Tavares. Like, those are the guys he's talking about. So I'd be really fired up if it was me in that dressing room tonight after hearing those comments.
That's a great point. And I had not looked at it through that lens. I'm looking at it through the fan, media, guy from Toronto, the fascination of Marchand and what he's done throughout his career. That, I think, is what should be actually relevant here. Because you're right. Like, he's sitting there saying, Brad Marchand, actually, finally, I might have come to Toronto because you guys actually proved to me you're worthy of my, presence and my free agency, ultimately going through free agency and choosing you. Me giving you my rose, you've earned it because you finally proved that you're actually, know how to do it. Even though he's never been in that room, never worn a Leaf jersey, never been, not from Toronto, to my knowledge, never lived in Toronto, doesn't know the history of the team, the market, the fans, the media, nothing. But that is a big part of it. And you're right. And even the, the part about Marner, it's that to an extent is like, well, he's just, he knows better. He knows what's going on.